She spent 15 years working with numerous nonprofits throughout New York City and the Westchester area, and some of her contributions have included directing of nonprofit marketing initiatives and development of volunteer and internship programs. Along with her experience advocating for the underserved, Gina has also been involved in mentoring over 1,000 women at the Grace Institute, serving as their career coach. Her passion for improvement and strengthening of the education system continues on today, as seen through her position at Mercy College. So please join me in welcoming Gina Avila. I have not met this panelist, is Acacia Baumberg-Sawati. She is here, right? Oh, there you are. Oh, good. I should have recognized you from your picture. Acacia? Acacia, thank you. Acacia is the Vice President of External Affairs for Planned Parenthood Hudson-Peconic. She is a leading voice on issues of health equity, reproductive health care access, and community stakeholder outreach. Previously, she served as the director of the Center of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, the Partnership Center, at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the Obama administration. While at Health and Human Services, she was a highly visible face of the Affordable Care Act, external outreach, and became one of the most requested surrogates for President Obama's healthcare legislation, educating stakeholders on the law and its benefits. And before that, she worked for South Carolina Congressman and House Majority Whip James Clyburn as a policy advisor, and eventually working among faith leaders to shift conversations on what constitutes a faith issue, broadening the understanding to include food insecurity, healthcare, and immigration beyond the traditional issues of abortion and gay marriage. Please join me in welcoming Acacia. And we've never done this before. We're in our 6th year now, I think, and we've never had a panelist who at the last minute couldn't come, and then we realized there was somebody in the audience who could step in, but that's what's happening tonight. So please join me in welcoming our Ossinings's own Jessica Vecchiarelli. She has had a career and continues to have a career in marketing and communications, currently at the Summit School in Nyack and previously at MasterCard. But what Ossining residents know her best for is her work as an organizer in the Harm Suburban 5 movement, which is focused on getting New York State to correct its foundation aid practices, which denies Ossining schools millions of dollars every year. Please welcome Jessica. So, welcome, ladies. And let me make sure you're Alrighty, so we have a few questions to kick off, but as I said, anybody who has any questions, please let Ro, Paul, or Susie have questions here. Great, we'll be collecting them and selecting some that we think are going to be particularly provocative for the discussion tonight. So I guess let's start after this film by asking, what do you think we can learn and improve on from the movement that we saw here, which is really focused on the 60s and 70s feminist movement? What are we doing today? What have we learned from that movement, and how have we progressed in today's activism? It's a very broad question. You can answer it however you want. You don't have to press it. You just hold it. You got it.
Good. Great. I found it so interesting. First and foremost, thank you so much for having us and for giving us all this opportunity to be able to share. I also love the diversity of the panel, so thank you for that as well. I'm watching that as I'm sitting there. I realize that we haven't really come that far with a lot of these issues. And one of the things that I focus on, and when I do a lot of my talks, is to also acknowledge race. And when we look at all of the percentages, I was reviewing this actually a few weeks ago for a talk that I had, and white women are making 80 cents to the white man's dollar. African American women, 63 cents to a white man's dollar. And Latinas, Hispanic women, 53 cents to the white man's dollar. And that's something that, wasn't mentioned, and maybe there weren't as many immigrants back in the day. And when I was looking at that, I said, there's more research that I'd like to do. But that's something that wasn't included that I think is very relevant and important for us to have that conversation. And it's all about awareness, because then we do have, the white male in leadership positions and all women in leadership positions that will create those opportunities for all of us to receive the equal pay and also understand the importance of diversity and inclusion.
I would just like to echo what Gina's talking about in terms of intersectionality. Intersectionality is a term that was coined by a Black woman, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, several years ago, with the idea that, there's a lot of different types of isms. And so when you're talking about the issue of racism, well, that affects me, a Black woman, in one way. But then when you talk about sexism, that affects me in another way. And let's say now, okay, I'm a Black woman, but what happens if I'm a Black woman who has a disability? And what happens if I'm a Black woman who has a disability who's also homosexual or a part of the LGBTQX community? And all of a sudden, how do I navigate through society with all these different stacked up things against me or with me? And so I think, it's really important that, when we talk about white people, when we talk about women, and I always say this, when you say women, you are not talking about the person who looks like me. When you're talking about the person who looks like me, you say white women and you say people of color. And that's how we're described. And so when we're looking at this research, it's very important, like Gina has said, is that we really disaggregate the data. So we're saying, okay, women are experiencing all of this great economic opportunity. Well, which women are experiencing economic opportunity? Which women are going to be able to go to college? Which women are buying homes? And when you really look at it, the figures, I think, are very different.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate. Thank you. To echo on what you're saying, I think it's incredibly important to recognize in the film how siloed everyone was in terms of first coming together as women and then breaking it down further the way that they did. I think that's something that obviously we're completely challenged with today in our society. And, especially living in Ossining, I feel like every time I turn around, it's as if we were set up to remain siloed and to not rise up together and to join together and to unite for a common goal and purpose. The gerrymandering that exists in our community, in our neighborhoods, that was designed to keep us down and to make sure that we aren't changing the system, that we don't have a voice, that we aren't heard. It's not really something that you expect to be dealing with in 2019 in Westchester County, one of the wealthiest counties in all of the world.
So thank you for the questions that are already coming in. We're going to keep it going. There's a lot of really good ones here. There are a number of issues that were raised in the film. Are there any of them where you feel like we've made some really great progress? Okay, good. We've got one nodding. Occasionally make us feel like there's been some progress, like all of this work, because we do feel like we've had some backsliding when it comes to reproductive rights. So where have we really made progress and it's taking hold and we're not going to go backwards?
I don't know if I would say in reproductive rights, but also it's true. It's a radical statement to say that women have autonomy over their own bodies. That is still a radical statement in 2019. And the policing of women's bodies, no matter what they look like, no matter their zip code, no matter their background, is still, very much present. But as I look at that film, I think about things that are still tough, but just the idea of everything that they went through, in the sense that, a man just can't, catcall you anymore. It's going to be seen, he will be publicly shamed. There is no sense of, women, when you're going to get a job, there's women's listing and there's men's listing. I'm the VP of a major organization. So there's definitely been a lot of progress. I would say, as to echo as that woman did on the film, is that it's much more insidious now. Racism in my parents' day was really clear cut, segregation and black and white water fountains. Now it's microaggressions that did he really say that? Or was I thinking that? Is it because I'm black? Or is it just because I'm not a nice person? These things that we constantly have to ask ourselves. as we kind of navigate, as I said, all of the isms.
So, what do you feel are or should be the top priorities for activists or feminists today?
I'm a true feminist. I'm actually raising also 3 lovely young women, and my husband's a feminist, and I think it's important to also involve the male figures in your life and educate them on what being a feminist truly means. You know, I just wanted to answer actually the first question also, and you know, I'll just give it to sorry. I lost my train of thought, yes.
I was going to say everything. Mary Wright Elderman, the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, you know, who's a lobbyist basically for children, and she goes around the country talking to donors and talking to policymakers, and they ask her, they say, well, you know, Marian, if there's like, you know, 2 things that poor families want for their kids, if there's like 3 things that poor families want for their kids, what would it be? And she says, well, that's already a non-starter. Nobody asks rich people, what are the 2 things that they want for their family? They want everything for their kids. And so if rich people want everything for their kids, why do you think that we can only give 2 things for poor people? So feminists, we want everything. I mean, I want economic equality. I want gun control. I want a safe environment. I want to be able to do everything that everyone else can do and live in a place where I can thrive and be my best possible me.
I identified with the part where, you know, you're finding your passion. The path that I'm currently on was not a path that I saw it wasn't a drawn out plan. I was successful in my career at MasterCard, and then I had a kid. And I didn't want to work those 12-hour days eating my dinner 9 months pregnant out of a vending machine. So I had a privilege because of the women before me who have fought, and I was able to make a choice. And I appreciate that. And I think what's motivated me in the decisions that I've made since becoming a parent, which changed, I think parenthood changes most people, is that I'm done keeping my frustrations and just dealing with them. And instead, I've decided, with many friends, to turn my frustrations into action and to make a difference, even a small difference, because there are ripple effects that can have a positive impact, even if it's not the goal that I was going for. And I think that resonated for me time and time again, watching this film. And it's powerful. There's power in turning your frustration into action. And it's so much better than, in my opinion, than just complaining. I think there's some beauty in taking ownership in the change, and being a part of making where you live a little bit better and a little bit more enjoyable for all.
I also see, and with this movement, I didn't realize how much work has gone into this mission, but I also find that there's a lot more females in leadership positions. And so because they're living our lives and they truly understand how challenging it is, you know, to juggle both, being a mom and a wife and also working really hard in your career, I find that because it's relevant to them, then they create opportunities where now women are working from home, right? And they're able to really be present while they're at work, but then also...
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in a half hour. Please note that the computers will be shutting down in about 15 minutes. Please save all your work.
Also to be able to be with their children, right? And help raise them so that they're able to just, you know, juggle both and really fulfill what it is to be a woman.
And I just want to build on that point because I think it's a great one. You know, when I wanted to weigh my options and work part-time, that wasn't an option with my employer. And that was not so long ago. And that was a Fortune 100 organization. Now, it's not just the women who need the opportunities to work from home, it's the husbands too, it's the men too. You know, dads, people, everybody needs work-life balance. It's incredibly important, and it's a buzzword, but people aren't exactly delivering it. And I think it's really nice to see that efforts that we've made as women are also benefiting men.
You know, Jess, you used the word beauty when you were describing not a person's looks necessarily, but the word beauty was in the title of this film. And one of the questions that we have here tonight is, isn't the title still making beauty what's important? And it just, I'm sure that many of you saw the photo shoot that was done at the 116th Congress, all of the women who were elected this year. I was so struck by those portraits of every woman who took office this year in the Senate and the House, largely because the photographer clearly took, it was a deliberate choice to photograph these women the way that they did, where they were making them look incredibly appealing. It wasn't the traditional beauty that they were celebrating in the photos. It was this incredible strength of character that was coming through, and I don't remember ever seeing, certainly not many, certainly not 116 portraits where that was the intention of a photograph of a woman, because we see women's images everywhere all the time. So I thought that was such a powerful statement that I've never seen before, and to me that was just such a wonderful celebration. And are now in our 100th year celebration of the suffrage movement, which they talked a little bit about in the film. 50 years later, it was like, I don't know what women were doing for 50 years. It took 50 years to get the right to vote. And then in the 60s and 70s, I wasn't around before that. I mean, I'm sure women were growing frustrated over the intervening 50 years where we got to the point where the feminist movement sort of exploded. And then for those of us who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, I don't know what was going on in the 80s and 90s. We were just kind of like Murphy Brown. It's like all we had. And here we are today in the 116th Congress. To me, I see as at least a symbolic moment in our history, particularly in light of the what's going on in the White House in our country. But I did want to just ask, does anybody want to comment on the choice of title for this film? Did it strike you in any way? Because we actually got some feedback on social media. People were, what was the comment? They thought it's a provocative title that some people take in kind of an offensive way. Did anybody have a reaction to, any of our panelists have a reaction to the title of the film? Did it strike you in any particular manner? No? Okay.
That's why I'm here. I thought it was an interesting title and I wanted to learn more about it.
I love that it mentioned two keywords, right? Angry and beautiful. And a lot of people don't associate those words, in one sentence to describe someone. But it's okay to be true with what you believe in. And it's okay as a female to stand up for what you believe in. And I think the title really resonated. I felt that that's what it was trying to say, right? It's okay for you to be really aggressive about a topic and to go forth and be loud about it. So I love the topic and I love the film.
Jeannie, you had comments, you had mentioned this a little bit, but one of the questions from the audience is, what do you want your male supporters to do or not to do?
I'm going to respond the way that you did. We want them to do everything that we do. Absolutely. And I think it all has to do with, I'm married actually to a Mexican man, raised very, very traditionally, and he's come a long way. And it's interesting because I founded a nonprofit organization to empower girls and women, and so he kind of had to jump on that bandwagon or it wasn't going to work. But now raising 3 strong girls, I think it's important. It's important to see eye to eye with males, and also, it's not about we're against men. It's more, let's talk about these really important topics and let's work together to just create opportunities for all human beings, right? Women and men.
I was born in 1973, and my dad, I think, was very specific about how he raised me. I mean, he really wanted a smart child. He really wanted an assertive child. So I remember being a little girl and we discussing what was going on in Beirut and things like that. I mean, you know, I don't think my father ever called me beautiful. That's not what it was about with me. It was literally about you being able to be the best person that you can be. And this was not how people were raising their girls, particularly little brown girls in the 70s. And he gave me a really great gift because I'm able to navigate at every level, having a really strong sense of who I am, no matter whether I'm wearing makeup or not wearing makeup, no matter whether my hair is done or not done. You know, I have this amazing mind that he and my mom gave me. I have this amazing character that he and my mom gave me, and that's my superpower. And so, you know, like, I have friends who, you know, are scared of getting older and things like that, and, you know, I'm like, yeah, you know, but what I have inside is the thing that really matters and what is able to help me be so successful. And so, once again, to have a dad do that, I mean, nowadays it's not anything. I mean, all dads, I think, are doing that with their daughters. But I would say, you know, 45 years ago, this was something that was...
Not all dads are doing
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
All the dads that I know are. All the dads that I know are amazing advocates for their girls and are teaching them to be stronger and teaching them to be exactly.
Yes, Rose, definitely doing that with this girl.
Yes.
And I just think knowledge is power. You know, when you share information with people and you know, not everyone had the opportunity to be raised like you did, but now it's so much more readily available. I mean, people could Google it if they wanted to now. And I think that's because of trailblazers, right? Who actually took the time and put the time in to build their children up in the right way and to encourage them to be and think. And I feel like all issues, not obviously, all issues are human issues, right? I mean, they're people at the end of the day, at the center of most issues that plague our society and our communities. And if we can just break down all of those things that kind of force us to, by nature, separate ourselves and come together with the common goals of betterment for all. I sound like a major socialist, but I am not affiliated with any party. I really think that it only information leads to opportunities for all.
I love that you mentioned information, and we run a program for girls in Westchester County, 13 through 17, and it's all about self-esteem, empowerment, and most of our girls, 90% of them, are Hispanic, and we make it a point to have these strong conversations, these important conversations with the parents, because it comes from home, and to include the dads, because you find that the women are the ones dropping off their children to the program and doing the drop-off and pickup. But it's also very important to include the dads, right? Especially because they come from a different country where, you know, the females are going to do certain roles in the house and they're only good for certain positions or careers, and it's important to also include them and, you know, educate them. So information is definitely important across the board.
I'm really enjoying how much the three of you are playing off of each other and elevating each other's comments. I wish that I could say that every interaction that I've ever had with a woman has been where we're trying to lift each other up. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. And one of our questions from the audience here asks, do you have thoughts about parallels with the recent Women's March, the problem of the splintering, and the historical experience captured in the film? Do you know what I'm referring to? Does anybody know what happened?
So at Planned Parenthood, we decided not to support support the Women's March this year because of the accusations of anti-Semitism that happened. I would just say that as we continue to have these conversations, and I guess another great example is what happened this week. I can never pronounce her name, but the Muslim Black congresswoman who was accused of anti-Semitism, and then became the greater conversation about is there a way to criticize Israel and its policies without being accused of being an anti-Semite. And I would say that, you know, this is going to continue to happen. People really are going to have to get comfortable with it. As we start kind of, you know, having all of these different groups with different identities and different backgrounds, being in the same space, having the same conversations, what we understand is that our lived experiences are going to be different. And, you know, not condemning her or not supporting her, but for Tamika Mallory, Louis Farrakhan, who I absolutely denounce, and, you know, absolutely. But for her, this individual is someone, and his organization is someone in her community is seen as a person who provides support. And once again, it's outside of our lived experience. And so for her, this individual is a friend. Definitely, I don't think that the way the Women's March handled it was very ungraceful, very inartful. It hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of their allies. But I think these types of things where people are coming from different spaces, being involved in different issues, seeing things in a different way. Yeah, if you're a Palestinian woman who's also an American, yeah, you might see Israel in a different way than someone else. And being able to have that opportunity to sit down and have those conversations. So that is going to be some of the price of the great diversity and inclusion, and being able to find a space so that everyone can at least talk through, you know, and also understand, yes, there are hurtful things that are going on, and help understand why these things are hurtful.
I, for one of the reasons why we founded WEI was because there is no safe place for women to come together, specifically here in Westchester County, to have these dialogues and bring up important points and offer free professional development and networking opportunities so that we can form a sisterhood where there's acceptance. So regardless of ethnicity and your economic standing, that you're able to come together just because we have that in common. We're women. And it's hard enough as it is in the workforce as females. We need to find a way to support one another. And, you know, I think it's very important. We do offer a monthly empowerment group program where women come together the last Friday of every month. And we talk about these topics. We bring in community leaders and professional women to offer the professional development and ultimately come together, form that sisterhood, because there's always something that someone has that someone needs. And it's just a matter of speaking up and coming together and having those conversations. So, you know, I think that's important.
I think that's wonderful. And, you know, it's a terrible truth that women shut down and break down other women. And it's important to create opportunities where there are networking opportunities. I do think that I was thinking of the Women's March as I was watching the breakdown of all of their efforts and the infighting appear. And because I was asked at the last minute to participate in this panel, I will happily disclose that I was not able to participate in the Women's March because we were doing our own rally in White Plains for the civil rights issue that our children are experiencing here in Ossining for their lack of funding.
So we're going to wrap this up after one more question. I'm going to ask one sort of broad question, and please also use that as an opportunity. If there are any other points that you want to share with the audience, any final thoughts you want to leave us with, anything that you would really wanted to make sure you got a chance to express but hadn't yet. And this is also an audience question. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions this evening. How do you define feminism in 2019?
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 10 minutes. If you have any items you wish to check out, please bring them to the circulation desk now. The library will be open tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you and have a good evening.
So you have one more second to think, because I'll just say it's actually 15 minutes before the library closes. But they do like us to really be out of here by 9 o'clock. I will ask our panelists if you would just pause and allow us to take a photo with you and the committee before we head out. But then I know at the end of every screening, somebody always wants to ask somebody a question and connect. So we try to leave about 10 minutes at the end of the evening for people to make those connections before we all head out and let the custodian go home and turn off the lights. So please, how do you define feminism today, and any other final thoughts?
Feminism to me is as a female standing up for your own rights and for other women's rights. So standing up for female rights, but also embracing it and doing it unapologetically.
I would say equity between the sexes, and I consider myself not only a feminist but also a womanist, and a womanist is the coin that was coined by Alice Walker, because I do think that while feminism is amazing, it does not holistically capture my experience as a woman of color in this country. But it really is about equity. It is about making sure that wherever we are, that there is equity between the sexes.
To me, feminism is, in 2019, is about using what you've got. If you have a voice and an opinion, use it. And it's about creating opportunities to not only support women, which is incredibly important, but to support any cause that means something to you and to make a difference in it.
Can I just say one more thing? So I work at Planned Parenthood, and I haven't really talked at all about abortion, but I would just like to remind everyone, RHA, the Reproductive Health Act, passed on the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And you may be hearing some really bad, vile stuff about it from the president and other people. And so I just want to just do this quick commercial just to say that all the RHA does is simply enshrines the protections of Roe into New York state law. That's it. There is no sense of women aborting healthy babies at 9 months. There is no thing of women having a baby and then killing the baby at the hospital. This is important, and I hope that my only ask of you is that to make sure that if you believe this, that you will talk to someone else that you love and make sure that they believe it too. Because the insidious misinformation out there is crazy, and it's really important that we let our supporters know that.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. Thank you to all of you for being here with us this evening. We hope to see you. Yes, sir. Did you have one final question?
It's probably too late to become a friend of the series, right?
It's not too late. There's a beautifully decorated box with butterflies outside on the table for just $20 as a suggested donation, but really any amount is welcome. Please, if you feel motivated to support the documentary discussion series, please do on your way out. And I would just say, we talk about some of the great leaders. Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who's leading our center right now, is just such an incredible leader and such an inspiration here in New York. There's so many women to be looking to now that these women could have only dreamed of 40 years ago.
And one last thing, if you work for an organization, especially if you work here at the Ossining Public Library, we are running our second program for the year for girls 13 through 17. I do have flyers with me, so if you can please grab one on the way out. If you know of any girls that can benefit, the program is absolutely amazing. If you go on the website, you'll be able to see the curriculum. And then also for all the women in the audience, if you want to volunteer, if you want to come in and do a presentation, empower the women, or just simply attend, we offer dinner every single time, and it's the last Friday of every month. Thank you.
Sorry, just one last thing. If you could take a moment to visit www.harmsuburban5.com, sign our petition, tweet about us, help us support the children of Ossining, Portchester, and a few other Long Island districts. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.